Hey, quick story for you here. We've seen it happen more than once here in the Twin Cities. A deal is moving along just fine, and then right before closing, a furnace issue, an electrical concern, or even a roofing question pops up. And suddenly things get stressful. That's exactly why we created our worry-free closing program at Twin City Heating, Air, and Electric. We send a licensed technician out to check the furnace, AC, electrical safety, water heater, and water softener, coordinate a roof evaluation with a licensed roofing contractor, and provide a full report on all the home's major systems. We can do this during due diligence or even before a home is listed, so potential issues get caught early. If you're a realtor or you're buying or selling a home, there's a simple way to keep things smooth. Twin City Heating, Air, Electric, built here, stays here.
From working in his family's Chinese restaurant, to bartending, to becoming present-day owner of Twin City Heating, Air, and Electric, my father's true superpower is human connection. Now, he's on a mission to capture the most fascinating stories that make up the Minnesota community. You're listening to the Twin City Tales podcast.
Welcome back to Twin City Tales. Today's guest is someone many Minnesotans know and admire. Greg Coleman made history as the first African-American punter in the NFL and spent 9 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings before building a successful career in broadcasting. But Greg's story goes far beyond football, from growing up in Florida to becoming a Minnesota sports icon, community leader, author, philanthropist, and remarkable motivational speaker. He has spent decades inspiring and impacting the lives of others, including myself. In fact, Greg recently spoke to our team at Twin City Heating, Air, and Electric, and his message about leadership, attitude, and perseverance left a lasting impression on all of us. His book, PUNT, Flip the Field, shares many of those lessons he's learned about overcoming adversity, embracing change, and making a difference wherever life takes you. I've been fortunate enough to know Greg for a few years now, and what has always stood out to me is his heart for people, his faith, and his commitment to serving others. Today, we'll talk about his journey from Florida to Minnesota, his NFL and broadcasting career, the stories behind the book, and the legacy he's continued to build. Please welcome my friend, Greg Coleman. Greg, great to see you, man.
I wondered who you were talking about as you were reading all of those accolades and all of that stuff.
Sometimes we don't always see ourselves in that light, do we?
No, no, you don't. I mean, you talk about down to earth. I'm not a diva. You know, I was a punter. So punters were always looked at as the last man on the totem pole, so to speak. But there's some good things that you can learn for being last on the totem pole. And I embraced every area of life that this journey has presented to me and my family. So we're very, very fortunate, very, very blessed to be in this stage of the journey. There's a heck of a lot of journey behind us and legacy, and there's still more ahead of us. But you take one day at a time and make the best of it.
Absolutely. I love that. Greg, let's start from the beginning. What was life growing up like in Florida?
Oh man, well, it was hot. I mean, let's just call it like it is. It was hot, both physically, emotionally, culturally. It was time of integration, forced busing, the have and the have-nots, division. But there was also a part of our culture that would embrace all of those challenges. You knew that you couldn't go too far on the other side of the track. You knew your limits. But here's the thing that sports taught us. Sports taught us that you had no limits. You put the limits on yourself. So when the adults said, well, you don't go over the other side of the track. Well, that's what the adults were saying. We as kids, we just wanted to play competition. You know, there was a good couple of baseball, football teams that lived on the other side of the track. So we took it upon ourselves. We were fine. We integrated, we chose teams, we did all of those things that adults just didn't have the right mindset to do. we became friends as far as boundaries would allow that. But so we knew sometimes adults would tend to put their thinking on their kids. Kids are not birthed to be racist or have biases. Those come from the laws of first truths. Well, you picked up what your grandfather said, what Papa said, and what your parents thought about another culture, another race. But then as you grew and you developed your own relationships, your own sense of identity. And this was a difficulty, for so many people back then. Well, Mom and Dad, that's just not true, because I don't see that in Johnny and his parents. I don't see that with Nate. Those guys are my friends. So it was a clash of cultures, growing up. But we survived.
It's interesting you say this, and I'm going to divert a little bit, because me growing up as Asian in a very predominantly white 1960s and 70s, it's really interesting because I feel like sometimes, and I get a little grief from it, because yes, it's the perception that our parents kind of go through and teach us. There's a truth to generational trauma that people don't always understand and see. But I also get told from a friend of mine, Kendra Miles Smith, who was a young Black woman that grew up here in Coon Rapids. And she gives me a lot of crap for making Asian jokes sometimes, because she's like going, you're kind of perpetuating the myth. But I think that's the thing that I grew up with, is embracing it so I can fit in with everybody else around me and not be, I'm not one of them, which isn't always great, but it's what we learn to protect ourselves, I think, growing up, right?
Absolutely.
And so in a difference in you growing up, and you're a little bit older than me, but not that much, but in the 60s, that was really troubling times for the different cultures.
Absolutely it was. And it's so interesting that you mentioned that. I mean, we're coming up on 250 years of independence for this country. And we will celebrate that, but we'll also celebrate Juneteenth, which was a time that African Americans found their freedom. So it's, from a cultural standpoint to a personal standpoint, where do you find freedom? Do you find it in 250 years? Do you find it on Juneteenth? Or what is that clock that's inside of you? What is that spirit that God put in each and every one of us? Bondages and boundaries have no timetable. Regardless of whether it was 250 years or 400 years or, Independence Day or Juneteenth, it's real. And it's how you express that. What do you, because we all have had some tough days. How do you overcome those tough days? How do you overcome those series of disappointments in life? And I think for me, being a man of faith, it starts with that. It also starts with my parents, grandparents, what they instilled in us, regardless to what culture said about a particular person, about a particular race. We didn't have to believe that. You take the good from the bad and do the best you can with it.
I agree 100%.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, because that's how we learn to get better, right?
Absolutely.
Again, I think we talked, Jamie Ogden once said we learn more from our cracks than we do from our polish. And
if we're honest with ourselves, great statement.
Yeah.
I repeat that statement again.
We learn more from our cracks than we do from our polish.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's where we have to always get better and empathize, right? See the other side, what they're seeing.
Well, I mean, you've always heard me say that if you don't have hope, boy, I think it's tough. because there's a saying that I can't remember exactly where I got it from. Hope is the gasoline that fuels your faith. People talk about faith, but what fuels that? Is it disappointment? Is it overcoming? All of those things, I just believe that hope is the epitome of goodness. And without it, you can sit in a corner with your thumb in your mouth, just saying, well, I wish I could, man. But hope is the gas that fuels your faith. And without faith, I don't think you have much.
I agree with you 100%. Gets you out of that curled up fetal position, right? Like if you
because
can't
life
find
will
that
beat
hope.
you down.
Exactly.
Life will beat you down and keep you in that corner. But at some point, you got to rise up. I say you back a cat into a corner. What is he going to do? He's either going to rise up or he's going to roll over like a wet noodle.
Right, and most of them are not going to roll over.
That's right.
That's for sure.
That's right.
So, going back to as a young man, did you ever imagine your journey there, being in the NFL?
Yeah.
So you did have
I
that
did.
picture.
I did.
Yeah. What was that like?
Well, first of all, it was a different picture because sports was big in the community. Baseball, football. I was not very good at basketball. They wouldn't even allow me on a basketball court. But then I figured out, I started kicking pop cans at 8 years old. Then I got a football, start kicking it over the fence, then kicking it over the electric wires in the neighborhood, and then eventually kicking them over the houses. And then I figured out the guys in the neighborhood say, man, Coleman can kick. He's pretty good at it. So I wound up kicking for both teams because I was not very big, not very fast. Didn't like the sight of blood, didn't like pain. So I stayed away from those positions that the other guys, my brother and, the running backs and the wide receivers and, the diva positions. And no, I'll just kick and I'll be okay with it. And pretty soon I figured out they treat me pretty special. And then I was watching a game between the Baltimore Colts and they were playing somebody at Old Memorial Stadium. And they had the clean white uniforms, Johnny Unitas, Tom Matte, Raymond Chester. John Mackey was a tight end for the Colts. And I saw this punter walk out on the field. Everybody's uniform was muddy, bloody, and dirty. And he walked out on the field, punted the ball, and walked back to the bench with a clean white uniform on. At a very young age, I started setting goals. I said, that's what I want to do, and that's what I wanted to be. So going up through Little League, I was a punter and a place kicker and all that stuff. I used to actually kick barefooted. I used to punt barefooted. And then I had a coach who told me, he said, son, you do okay, right? I said, yes, sir. He said, but let me ask you something. He didn't belittle me. And this is the power of words, and I'll get back to that. He said, what do you think would happen if somebody stepped on your foot? Inadvertently, not maliciously, but if they just accidentally stepped on your foot. I said, probably hurt, coach. He said, yeah, probably bleed too, yeah. He said, you wouldn't be able to help the team if your foot got stepped on and you couldn't punt for us. I said, no. I said, okay. He turned around and walked away. The next day I had a shoe on. But it's those kinds of lessons that I learned from community, from our coaches and mentors in the neighborhood many, many years ago. And I even relish in talking with leaders in leadership. Words matter. It's how you address your team. Words are so powerful that I can remember words from many, many years ago, from aunties and grandmas and dads and moms and coaches and principals and teachers. Words are so powerful that God spoke the world into existence. That's just how powerful. He said, let there be, and it was. So when I talk to coaches and organizations and leaders, be careful about what comes out of your mouth. Because the old saying of sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, that's a lie from the pit of hell.
Right.
Because I'm with my wife for 48 years. We celebrated 48 years last Wednesday because of words. the words that I spoke to her, the words that she spoke to me. And we have built a life, a family, a legacy, and all of those things that we have accomplished by words. So if there's anything else that, your listening audience wants to take away, watch what comes out of your mouth, because there's a phrase in the Bible that says life and death is in the power of the tongue. And I believe that. So I am very careful about what I say to my kids, my grandkids, especially my grandkids, and even what I say to myself. Because I've always stated that, what if God gave you every word that came out of your mouth? Would you change the way that you talk?
I think I would.
Absolutely.
A lot of it. And
Absolutely.
I think yes, because words are so powerful and can be so but they can be so helpful too.
Absolutely.
On both ways. I keep looking back, and somebody that we both know, Stephen Crawford, unlocked this for me because I had him as my business coach 10, 15 years ago. My dad used to tell me, and it wasn't out of maliciousness that he would tell me this, and I can still remember him saying, if you've thought about it and it's going to make $1 million, somebody's already done it, right? But the problem with that is he is limiting my beliefs, but he wasn't doing it to hurt me. He was doing it to protect me from getting hurt.
And
but
to
he doesn't
encourage you.
realize, yes. Encourage me, don't, I'm not saying don't think too big. I think he always wanted you to think big. He just didn't want me to get hurt from thinking too big.
That's the love of a father.
Yeah, and I think that's where I had to realize, okay, why can't I think bigger, right? Why can't, but just that words were so powerful. God love him. He rests his soul. He died about 5 years ago. But he instilled that in me. But there's other things that he instilled. It's like the guy getting a speeding ticket, right? He's sped all over the place. Probably deserved the one, right? But he did so much in those days. But that's the power of words sometimes.
Absolutely.
And that held me back for a while. But then once I understood that, now I'm more cautious of what I say to my children, what I say to my team, right? I still make mistakes,
We all do. We all do. I'll give you a case in point. You talk about words, and I'll fast forward the journey from Pee Wee to college. My kicking coach at Florida A&M, we're at practice one day, and I'm just hitting the ball 50, 60, 70 yards down the field. And he stops and he says, "Well, baby, why you kicking it right to him?" I said, "Well, Pop, that's where he's standing. He's standing right in the middle of the field." He said, "Well, hell, baby, why don't you make him work a little bit?" He said, "Kick it to the right, kick it to the left." And he said, "If you do it on a consistent basis, I guarantee you they'll find a place for you at the next level." I said, "Pop, what are you talking about?" He said, "Man, kick the ball and make him run. Kick the ball to his right, kick it to his left. Make him do some work too." He said, "And I guarantee you, they'll find a place for it." And I was stupid enough to believe him. And believe it or not, my forte for 12 years in the National Football League was coined by Howard Cosell, Coffin Corner Coleman, because of words.
I remember that. I remember back in the day, which kind of brings me to a little question of football history, because I feel like we kind of knew that by the time I was in high school, where the punters were going to start aiming at certain spots, right? But what you're telling me in the early 70s, they didn't think about it. We would call it out before the punt was going to happen, we're going left or we're going right.
Exactly.
So I feel like that's part of your legacy too, that you were part of that creation of that.
Yeah, well, I didn't have the big booming leg of a lot of punters. I had to do what God had given me, because he's given us all a special gift and a special talent. Yeah, I may not be able to hit the big booming punts, boy, but I could throw that ball off my foot to the 5-yard line whenever I wanted. Yeah. And that was a gift that I figured, hey, you better do what you do well. Forget about what Ray Guy did. Forget about what Gerald Wilson did. You do what Greg Coleman does, and does it well. Whenever I got off, whenever I had a missed punt or focus wasn't there, I was trying to emulate somebody else. Do what you do best. Let them emulate you. Those were the best times of my career, best times of my life as a punter.
Those are really. I'm going to bring back some names from the past. You didn't think like Neil Clable or Mike Eichstein.
Those are historic names from Viking folklore.
Yes. They were the two before you, I believe, weren't they?
Yeah, Mike, and then a guy by the name of Mike Woods as well.
I forgot about Mike Woods.
Yeah, I replaced Woody.
And even before that, I think Bobby Walden.
And then Bob Lee punted for a few.
That's right. He was quarterbacking. He was the backup to Tarkenton for a long time. Bob Lee and Bob Berry. Was he in that mix?
I don't remember that name.
I think he might have played before that.
Okay.
It was probably in 72, 73.
Yeah.
But I believe the three quarterbacks, because, you're a kid, you always look at the three quarterbacks, Bob Berry, Bob Lee, and Fran Tarkenton. Yeah. That was a depth chart.
Absolutely.
So going into that, when you broke that barrier of being the first African-American punter, did you realize how much that accomplishment was going to mean, or at the time?
No. Let me give honor where honor is due. Now, there have been other athletes, other African Americans who had punted, but they were at other positions. Horace Gillum and Dave Mays and Marlon Briscoe was a quarterback. Dave Mays was a quarterback. But as far as the first true African-American punter with no other position, no other responsibility, they tell me was Greg Coleman. Now, I didn't start out to be the first African-American punter. I just started out to be a punter who happened to be African-American. I felt that my talents, my abilities, lined up toe-to-toe with anybody else. Nobody could do it better. And once I got the opportunity, because let me back up, drafted by Cincinnati in 76. I made a mistake of running the 40, 4.4, 4.3, something like that. And Paul Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals said, "You got too much speed to be just a punter." Because that was during the time where they would take kids from predominantly HBCU schools, whether they were quarterbacks, they change them to a defensive back or a wide receiver. And that's what he wanted to do to me. Hey, coach, I've never played wide receiver. I've never played defensive back and all of those things. Well, just go try it. Go over there with Kenny Anderson and Isaac Curtis and Chip Myers and all those guys. They'll tell you what to do. Well, then that didn't work out. So he switched me to defensive back. Well, go with Ken Riley and Lamar Parrish and Tommy Casanova and all those guys. That'll work out. No, coach, it didn't work out. And then they run my legs off, and then I have to kick after practice. That was not a fair competition. They drafted Chris Barr from Penn State in the second round. I felt that I could out-kick Chris Barr, but I never really got an opportunity to be a place kicker because that was almost taboo. It was damn well. We're going to give you a shot as a punter. You damn sure ain't going to be a place kicker too. But I thought I was a better place kicker than I was punter.
Okay.
Another whole story. Long story short, didn't work out in Cincinnati. I got a call from Cleveland, the Cleveland Browns, because a coach at Florida A&M had a relationship with the special teams coach with the Browns by the name of Al Tabor. And they called me and they gave me a shot. And Forrest Gregg was the coach. They also drafted a punter in the second round from Ohio State, Tom Scladani. Well, Scladani didn't want to punt in Cleveland because of the wind and the weather and the factors and all of that stuff. He wanted to punt in Detroit. They had just built the Detroit Silverdome.
Yes.
So he held out. And Forrest got frustrated because, hey, if you're going to play, you got to be in camp. Well, I didn't care. Let Scladani hold out. And he held out to the point that Forrest Gregg said, "Hey, can you handle this?" He said, "Because we're 2 weeks away from the season, and he ain't here." I said, "Coach, all I need is another chance." He said, "Okay, well, you're my punter." And Forrest Gregg, who's full-blown Cherokee Native American, gave an African-American kid from the inner city of Jacksonville, Florida, an opportunity to punt in the National Football League.
And that's what got it started.
That's what got it started.
So it just kind of drew me back a little bit. Like Pat McInally punted for the Bengals. Didn't he at that time?
He was hurt. He got hurt in an all-star game. So it was Pat McInally, Dave Green, myself, Chris Barr, all of us competing in that 1976 training camp for the Cincinnati Bengals.
I did not know that.
Absolutely.
I didn't know that as a background. And I just remember Pat McNally
Yes.
not just played punter, he was the tight end too for them. And he was actually pretty darn good, if I remember right. But he punted for them.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, long, lanky kid.
yeah. Interestingly enough, though, the Cleveland didn't work out for a while. And I love the story about you in California watching TV. Was it in California?
No, I was back in Cleveland.
That's right.
I'll give you the short version.
I love this story.
I'll give you the short version. I had a fairly decent rookie year. Forrest Gregg got fired at the end of the season. Art Modell fired Forrest Gregg.
Did he end up going to the Packers or something like that, coaching?
Yeah, he was Packers, then coaching at Cleveland. He was a head coach at Cleveland.
Okay.
Forrest gave me a shot. He was fired by Art Modell at the end of the season. Sam Rutigliano came in the following year, and they went back into the draft because Art Modell had lost this second-round pick, Tom Scaladini, because he signed with Buffalo, signed with Detroit. So he goes back into the draft, drafts a kid by the name of Johnny Evans, who was a quote-unquote quarterback/punter. And I go to Sam Rutigliano. I say, Sam, why don't you cut me now? Because, you got this kid in the second round, and I know how the game works. No. The best man is going to get the job. I say, Sam, I'm telling you now, this is how it's going to go down. No, if you listen to Sam Rutigliano, you talk about a salesman, Sam could talk the wet out of water. So I believed him. I took him at his word. I led the league that preseason. 49.8 yards. Johnny Evans, 34 point something. Anyway, I'm thinking I got a shot. I'm going to be the punter. The Friday before the first game of the regular season, I get a call. I said, Greg, we had landlines. There were no cell phones back then. He said, Coach Sam wants you to come in and bring your playbook. I say, playbook? I don't have a playbook. Hell, I'm a punter. I catch the ball, I kick the ball. So anyway, I come in, and Sam has got his head down. He said, Greg, I'm sorry. I said, Sam, I told you from the beginning how this was going to work out. He said, but you're good enough. You'll find a spot. Long story short, I was out of work for 7 weeks, tried out with 3 or 4 different teams. New England, Buffalo, Philadelphia Eagles, 5, and the San Diego Chargers. Nobody wanted to make a decision. We'll give the guy another week, and then if it doesn't work out, we'll bring you back. Didn't work out. We're still living in Cleveland, 9th floor apartment window, downtown Cleveland. My wife, we were expecting our first child, and I was watching a game between the Los Angeles Rams and the Minnesota Vikings, and neither punter was doing well. And I go to my 9th floor apartment window, and I open it, and I'm screaming at God. I'm letting him have it. I say, you lied to me. You told me if I would pray and if I would do the right things, you would give me the desires of my heart. Where are you, you lying, Ryan? I mean, I'm just giving him the business. Lucky that lightning didn't strike me down. But he listened. And I said, God, I just want to play football. I want to play football so bad that I'll even play for the Minnesota Vikings. And I closed that 9th floor apartment window. But see, what I didn't tell you, Wymond, many, many years ago when I was a little shorty back in Jacksonville, Florida, there was one team that I said that I would never, ever play for, was the Minnesota Vikings. Because whenever you saw them on TV, it was under the frozen tundra of Metropolitan Stadium in Bloomington, Minnesota, with snow piled up to here. It was cold as heck, and they had a coach that had this crew cut and pierced blue eyes that stood on the sideline and just looked at you, didn't say a word. But here was the real issue. The Minnesota Vikings wore black shoes. Now, you got to remember back in the day, all the cool players wore white shoes. Billy White Shoes Johnson, Joe Willie Namath, Elmore Wright, so I was not coming to Minnesota to freeze my behind off, play for a coach that didn't say much, and wear black shoes. But God had to humble me to the point of saying that, God, I'll even play for the Minnesota Vikings. God has a funny sense of humor.
He does.
And I spent the next 10 years punting here for the Minnesota Vikings, one of the best moves I ever made.
And you even call it home.
For 40 plus years, 40 plus years. We just moved back to Florida. Mom's health started to fail about 4 or 5 years ago. Had a brother who had some issues back home, taking care of him now. So yeah, we dropped the mic with the broadcast, and people say, "Well, man, why? How can you walk away from the NFL?" I said, "Very easy, because the NFL is not my God. Because God had given us great journey behind us." And Eleanor would always say, "Man, I wanted to do this. I want to do that." I said, "Well, let's just do it." She said, "No, but you're always busy with the season. You're always doing this. It's the Vikings this, Vikings that." And we made a decision. I said, "Okay, next year would be my last year." I never told anybody. We prayed about it, had peace about it. Then COVID hit. And I said, "Baby, I can't quit doing COVID." I said, "Give me another year." She said, "Okay." We were in agreement. I said, because I thought we had a pretty good team that we would make a run. And we had to win in Green Bay a Sunday night game in order to make it to the playoffs. Because she kept doubting me. She said, "You're not going to tell them. I don't think, As soon as we lost that game, that Tuesday morning, my resignation letter was in with the organization. And he said, "Well, what happened? What pissed you off?" I said, "It has nothing to do with you guys." I said, "Whatever journey God gives us moving forward, we're going to do what we choose to do. We're just having these young grandkids. We want to do some traveling, wanted to write a book, did some ministry work, traveling to Africa, South Africa, different places. We are choosing to write this last chapter as we want to write it, not being dictated by any other stimulus. Not to say that that's a bad thing. And it's been good. It's been good. Yes, I dropped the microphone for the Vikings. But a very dear friend of mine who we just lost a couple of weeks ago, Charlie Neal. Charlie Neal is who we call the godfather of black college sports, HBCUs, BET, ESPN, the early years. And Charlie Neal is also a member of the Black College Football Hall of Fame. And Charlie tried to talk me out of retirement. "Man, come on back. I need you to support these HBCU schools and all of that," which I've been doing anyway. And he said, "Tell you what, just do a pregame show with us, a preseason show, kickoff show." So we went to Canton and we did that kickoff show sitting next to Charlie Neal, who is an icon. Google his name, an amazing, amazing broadcaster with a great voice, just a dear, dear friend. We did the preseason show. Next year he comes back and says, "Hey man, give me one game. Just do one game." So I did one game. And they said, "Hey, you enjoyed that, didn't you?" "Yeah." I said, "Charlie, pick the 3 games that you want." So I picked 3 games the following year. And those 3 games turned into 6. Long story short, I did 6 games. So I was back in the booth on HBCU college students, on college campuses, looking at some of my contemporaries, men who have played and now coaching at HBCUs, looking at the programs that they're trying to build, the young men that they're trying to mentor and model with not a whole lot of NIL dollars. So if I'm going to give my support, because Florida A&M HBCU gave me an opportunity. When a lot of the PWIs said, "No, Greg, you can run track. You can do work study, but we don't have any space or place for a black punter and a black kicker." Florida A&M came to my house and knocked on my door, said, "Ms. Coleman, if Greg comes to Florida A&M, he can punt, he can kick, he can run track, and if he goes to class, he'll graduate." My mom says, "That sounds real good." She looked over the paper and she says, "Oh, Ms. Coleman, we'll feed him 3 meals a day." My mom looked, 3 meals a day? She said, "Give me that damn pen. Have you seen how much this boy eats?" And we signed it right away. And I had a great, great career at Florida A&M. Just an amazing college experience that prepared me for adulthood with those coaches and mentors and well-wishers. Just had a phenomenal career. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it the same way, Wymond.
Was Jimmy Johnson a part of that?
Jimmy Johnson was my high school coach.
Okay.
Jimmy Johnson was my high school coach.
Okay, I thought that might have been. I remember talking about
But
that.
Jimmy Johnson did go to Florida A&M, so he
Yeah.
had that same pedigree, that same tenacity. Jimmy Johnson, my high school coach, and I'll be quick. I was a defensive end. All I cared about was quarterback sacks, punting and kicking. And one day, I found out it was a conspiracy, because I would not come down and take on offensive tackle that we had by the name of Larry Brown, who was a 4th-round draft choice for the Kansas City Chiefs, on my offensive line. And I would just get out of the way, and I'd go make the tackle. And the defensive coordinator, they were screaming and hollering, "You're going to get my guys killed." So I wasn't going to do it. So they kicked me out of the drill. Coach Jimmy Johnson said, "Greg, go get that bag of balls and go up on the other field and see if you can flip the field. That's what you're going to do best." Because they had figured out that if I got hurt as the punter and the place kicker, that we would be in a whole heck of a lot of trouble, because there goes a third of our special teams. And that was one of the best moves that Coach Jimmy Johnson made.
He made a lot of good choices, but
Yes,
that's
he
a
did.
top one, I would say.
In my book, absolutely it was.
Oh, that's
Absolutely.
fantastic. So going out of your punting career, you got into broadcasting. How did you realize that was your thing?
I think my broadcasting career started back in high school, because I would announce, when we had the basketball, games in the gym, they would always announce both teams and all of that stuff. So the full-time announcer was sick one day, and our athletic director, coach, and my head coach, Jimmy Johnson, said, "Hey, Greg, get up on the mic and announce the teams." And that's where it started. And I did a little bit at Florida A&M. I had 2 great friends, Chico the Virgo and Joe Bullard, called himself the Almighty on WANM. And we were tight, and man, so I knew that the words that they said over the air would inspire people to do great things. Would put a smile on their face. So I said, maybe one day I'll do that. And so I just kind of had it in my back pocket. And back in the day, in the NFL, I had to have an off-season job. So I remember when I first got here, I did an interview with Mark Rosen after one of the first few weeks here. And Al Crocker was his cameraman. And Mark was a young string being, covering the Vikings. And he was hemming and hawing. So I grabbed his microphone and I flipped the script and I turned it around and I interviewed him. And that really got me going. And then I went to Brown Institute to get some learning and figure out a few other things. But I do remember talking with James Brown of CBS Sports. He was broadcasting a basketball game, Final Four here.
Let me help you with that. Master English, Master King James.
There you go.
Love that line.
There
I
you
read that
go.
in the book.
And
But go on. I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you. I
that's
love
okay.
that.
No, we can skip that point because you said it. I just happened to see James Brown last week at the service of Charlie Neal. He did the eulogy because Charlie was James Brown's mentor. Did basketball games with him as well. And I reminded of James and his wife of that. And he said, "Greg, you remember that?" I said, "Absolutely. That was some of the best counsel you could ever give me, JB. But I would do something every off season because getting cut taught me that the NFL was a short-lived business. And if I didn't prepare for life after football, I was going to be in a world of hurt. Because you see the horror stories of guys who retire and you read about them destitute and all different sorts of endings of their careers. But I owe it to my wife. During our time, she knew that as well. So she created a community outside of football. And she said, "I'm going to have a few people over, Friday or something like." "Yeah, that's fine." So I'm thinking it's going to be teammates and, they're gals and wives. I come in, I don't know anybody. I say, "Who are these people?" She said, "These are my friends. This is my community outside of sports because we're going to be done playing sports sooner or later. You can outlive Father Time." One of the best moves, very wise woman. I don't know where I would be without her.
That's fantastic. Most people don't always recognize that, and I'm seeing that in my wife too. She's the quiet one, but she really grounds me, so I'm very appreciative of that.
Absolutely.
I agree. God, higher power, they set you up for these things. It's how you use it and how you truly have gratitude for that.
Absolutely.
That really, I think, enhances your life. I think sometimes the worst things can happen to you, but if you have that little bit of gratitude, love this one also from Jamie Ogden. If you have gratitude, there's no room for fear or hate.
Absolutely.
In there. Like if you're 100% grateful, there's no room for anything else. And that's where I feel like we have to always kind of find that little thing to be grateful for
each and every day. When you get the wake up call, Wymond, if you can put a smile on somebody's face through words or deed, or just a gesture, you have created joy and hope for that person for the rest of the day.
Oh,
you don't know how much it means to a person, because you never know where they are. Because we all have our issues. We all have our downtimes. But just a word, a phone call or text or a smile or a glass of water, man, just could lift the spirit of somebody that you never know. I'll give you the pregame preach. We started that. It picked up its own momentum, and Paul Allen was the creator of that. Didn't know that. But the pregame preach, the feedback that I have gotten over the years that we have done that, the messages of somebody who was about to do something very, very stupid, but to combine the Word of God with football, a word in 45 seconds before a kickoff could change somebody's life, to keep them from doing something stupid, to remind them that life is more precious than what they were going through. It's all worth it. It's all worth it.
100%. Man, that's fantastic. I think it's like we went back to power of words, right? Just
exactly.
The flip the field, the flip the thought.
Yeah.
It's incredible. One of the things that, since we're talking about Flip the Field, the book, one of the things that when I read through it, I really loved all the little stories in there and really gave me more inspiration of how to handle certain things. What do you hope readers took away from it when they've read it? What's the biggest takeaway, do you feel?
That they can do whatever they choose to do and be whatever they choose to be, regardless of whether you're a college athlete, a pro athlete, CEO of a corporation, $1 million corporation, or a stay-at-home mom, that you can. And this thing called PUNT has been in me a long time, and I finally, took the time to write it. Because a lot of people think that punting is an act of surrender. It's fourth down, we're going to give the ball up. Sometimes in certain situations in life's journey, you're going to have to take a step back. People talk about shift, pivot, change, adjust, adapt, all of those things. Well, I didn't do any of those. I punted, and I punted well. And the acronyms, the methodology that I teach from is P, you push through the obstacles. You understand your strengths, because God gave you strengths that he didn't give anybody else. Then N, you got to navigate through the crap of life. Life is full of stuff that you're going to have to get through. And then you take calculated risk with wisdom. If I can teach you and show you how to punt, not surrender, because so many great things can happen on fourth down as you punt. You can hit a punt inside of the 5-yard line and pin the team back. You can run for a first down. You can throw for a first down or a touchdown. So punting is not surrendering. Punting is a strategic move, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that can give you the moment to say, so you can respond versus reacting. Because if you react, a lot of emotion and feelings are in there, and your feelings can fool you. But I feel that if you can respond, and I always tie the word respond with wisdom. And if you can invoke wisdom in a difficult situations, 9 times out of 10, you're going to come out okay.
Makes a lot of sense. So we should always look at punting is a great analogy for being proactive in your decisions of what you're doing.
Exactly.
Punting really isn't about, hey, we're down to 4th down, we're 4th and 8. It's being proactive, like, okay, what are our choices and what are we going to do?
Well, even if you have to give up the ball, but you can pin a team inside the 5-yard line, so you're going to limit their offense and give your defense the advantage. So even punting can be an advantage. It is an advantage. So that's what I want the everyday person to take away from this book.
To be able to have that advantage every situation you look at.
Exactly, because you're going to push through the obstacles, you're going to understand your strengths, you're going to navigate, and then you're going to take calculated risk. Man.
I love that. I love that. And, the last 25, 30 years since you've been out of football, it's been 25 years?
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. But the one thing that I really admire about you is that you keep coming back to the community. You lived here for a long time, but you keep coming, and you really, really have a heart for our community, especially your YMCA North with the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so big for you. Tell us how you got into that and what was the driving force, because it's going into 25 years now.
26 years, 27 years. Yeah.
27 years.
This community embraced me when I came. They didn't have to, but they did. They made us feel like it was home, and eventually we made it home. The YMCA was an easy putt because I grew up as a Y kid. I learned how to swim at the Y, learned about teamwork at the Y, learned discipline at the Y, had mentors and tutors and all of those things at the YMCA on Cleveland Road in Jacksonville, Florida. So Eleanor was a member of the board of the YMCA University YMCA. She was on that board, and she said, Greg, we really need to look at this organization and give them some help because they're doing some amazing things. One thing led to the next. So for the last 20 plus years, the YMCA has been the benefactor of all the proceeds that come from the Greg Coleman Celebrity Golf Tournament. And thank you for being a partner, a longtime partner. I don't call them sponsors because a sponsor is somebody who can write a check and walk away. We've got partners. That means that you're going to stick with us through thick and thin, come hell or high water. We've got some great partners in Steve Terry of TSR Injury Law. I mean, let me tell you about Steve. You see his face all over the place, but he has a heart of gold. Steve, too, was a Y kid. His daddy put him into the Y. So he said, I don't have a choice but to support you. He said, Coleman, I don't like you, but I got to do what my dad tells me to do. So we have had fun and have come to know Steve and love him. He and his family, it's just been an amazing, amazing partnership. The Vikings, and the list goes on and on and on. We bring in celebrities from this area. I have a group of celebs that come in from Florida and a few other parts of the country because they too believe in young people. All of our young people are not going to hell in a handbasket. Wymond, there have been kids who have been in this program for 20 plus years who are now come full circle, and they are now working at the Y in some of these same programs. So we have seen the fruits of our labor. A lot of times you'll donate to a charity and you don't know how the success. We have seen the success rate. That's why we continue to do it. It's one of the best times of the year for us. Yeah. Coming back during August. It's August 18th in Coon Rapids. I mean, we have 27 holes. It's a great event. Go to ymca.org/Coleman Golf, or just YMCA of the North, and somebody will get you that information. We are close to being sold out, but there's another way. Even if you don't play golf, you can donate to a great cause and know that every penny that you submit is going to sports in mentoring and tutoring programs for kids in our community. And I've seen it work. We used to do that old United Way commercial. It works for all of us, the United Way.
Yeah.
Well, it works for all of us, the YMCA of the North Way. I mean, because we've got programs and kids during COVID. they met so many different needs, not only sports and mentoring, tutoring, checking on our adult, elderly population and all of those things. So it's a no-brainer for me. It's a no-brainer for us.
And it's just been fantastic. I've seen what the Y has done. I've gone to some of the YMCA's reopening, and the birth of the one in Andover has an amazing
Oh my gosh.
facility up
Yes.
there. And it really helps kids, especially latchkey kids that both parents are working.
Absolutely.
Instead of getting in trouble,
Yep.
they're actually doing something and really being a productive part of society.
Oh, absolutely. The programs that, the flag football is part of the program, a big part. Flag football is going to be in the Olympics in 2028.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, absolutely. And there'll
Okay.
be some kids from the state of Minnesota that will be playing in the Olympics through the Y program. So, without question, if you can't play golf, and most of us who can't play, who pretend like we play, but just donate. Go to the website. Absolutely.
I love how you're still so entrenched in the community when you have the choice of going, I'm out of here after the cold snow. But your daughter, too, is doing an art gallery thing. She's
Absolutely.
entrenched. And your son, too. He did a lot of comedy work around this area.
Yeah, but they're both educators by trade. My wife is an educator. My son will be at the Allen Page school this year. My daughter Kara and her husband Christopher Aaron Deans is opening. God has been so good to them. A space that was donated, prime space in the heart of downtown Minneapolis on 5th and Nicollet. They'll be opening the Rojo Art Gallery that focuses on African-American artists in the area. 3,000 square feet. We've got an event here in a couple of days, and the grand opening is July 17th and 18th. So there'll be more information out about that, advertisement, social media, and all of those things. But art, they have used art and these artists as for healing in the community. This has been a tough community over the last several years. Everything from George Floyd to last summer and all of those things and ICE and all of that stuff. But organizations have called on their artists to do healing circles and circles of art for healing. They do a great job, and she's the executive director and doing an amazing job. So those kids will do things well beyond what Eleanor and I were able to do. Even though we're back in Florida, we inherited another organization. We said that we're going to retire and travel and all of these things. Well, one of my high school mentors and coaches was one of the founders of the Bob Hayes Invitational Track Meet down in Jacksonville, which has been in existence for 64 years. When Bob won the Olympic gold in 64 in Tokyo, when he came back to Jacksonville, coaches and mentors and teachers felt that he was not honored in a way that it should be. So they started the Bob Hayes Track Meet. At one point, this Bob Hayes Track Meet, and I was a participant. I was a hurdler in the Bob Hayes Track Meet. I'm a Bob Hayes champion for the rest of my life. I'm in the Bob Hayes Hall of Fame, Track and Field Hall of Fame. But now I'm the executive director of the Bob Hayes Track Meet. And at one point, the Bob Hayes Track Meet was the largest one-day track meet of high school students in the country. We've taken it over now, and we had 2,500 kids. Last year, we had a Hall of Fame gala. We inducted Melissa Jefferson Woodard, the world's fastest female, T.T. Terry, both who were a part of the 2024 Olympic gold medal 4x100 meter relay. Justin Gatlin, Edwin Moses. We have a Hall of Fame gala. We have a middle school meet on that Friday, a clinic for these kids. And these Olympians get a chance to share with these students what it takes to win, how to avoid the pitfalls of life and all of those things, making great decisions. And Saturday, the Bob Hayes Track Meet. We start at 8 in the morning. We run it, and I'm still the meet announcer, even though I'm the executive director. It's a great weekend for the city of Jacksonville and South Florida. We have kids from Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, New Jersey, the Bahamas, It's just an amazing event.
Wow.
So we can't sit down on our behind and rest on our laurels if we wanted to.
Yeah.
We're doing more now than we were when we both were working full time. But you know what? It's what God called us to do.
Oh my goodness.
And that's what we do.
And you are such a giving person, that big heart of yours. It's incredible. I'm just appreciative that you get to know you and at a higher level too. And man, you gave us a lot to digest here. We're going to go to a break right now,
Okay.
and then we'll come back.
Sounds good.
At Twin City Tales Podcast, we believe in strong communities are built by people and organizations willing to care for others. That's why we are proud to support Hammer and NER, an incredible Minnesota nonprofit helping adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities live life to the fullest. Their work creates opportunity, dignity, independence, and connection right here in our community. If you'd like to help, Hammer and NER is always looking for volunteers, advocates, and donations to continue their mission. I am one of those people that highly help that community out. Learn more, get involved, or give back at hammer.org. Together, we can continue building a stronger, more compassionate community for everyone. Ever walk into a house and flip a switch and have no idea what it actually does? Like, is it a light, an outlet, or something in the garage? Nobody knows. Or what about when you plug in something into an outlet and it just slowly falls out like it's giving up on life? Or worse, the outlet just doesn't work at all. Well, we see that stuff every day. At Twin City Heating, Air, and Electric, we help homeowners take care of those small electrical issues before they turn into bigger problems. Loose outlets, dead plugs, mystery switches, we'll track it down, fix it right, and make your home actually work the way it's supposed to. So if something feels off electrically, it probably is. Twin City Heating, Air, and Electric, built here, stays here. Feel the difference. Before we jump back into my conversation with Greg, I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying Twin City Tales, please take that moment to hit that subscribe or follow button on YouTube and on Spotify. It helps us share these incredible stories with more people throughout the Twin Cities and beyond. And if you've enjoyed an episode, learned something new, or been inspired by one of our guests, we'd greatly appreciate a rating or a review. It only takes a minute, but it helps others discover the show. You can find Twin City Tales on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. And don't forget to follow Twin City Tales on Facebook for behind-the-scenes content, upcoming guests, episode highlights, and more stories from around our community. Most importantly, thank you. This podcast is built around celebrating the people who make a difference, business leaders, community champions, entrepreneurs, athletes, and everyday people with extraordinary stories. Your support is absolutely huge. Now let's get back to my conversation with Greg. And remember, life's too short for bad stories, bad coffee, or bad service, and you can't go wrong with Wymond Wong. So let me ask you this, Greg. Who is someone you'd love to see or hear on this podcast?
Ooh. I got a couple of people that come to mind. First one is Don Shelby.
He's fantastic.
Don and I served together on General Nash's Minnesota National Guard Corporate Advisory Board for almost 8 years. I knew of Don with WCCO, and we had a quasi-relationship, but those 8 years really solidified who Don Shelby truly is. A great spokesman, a man of great resolve and faith, and he's just a nut. I mean, Don Shelby will keep you in stitches. He's one. Another guy that I played with for the Vikings many, many years ago, Tim Baylor. Tim Baylor at one point, wore number 47, was the tallest cornerback in the National Football League at 6'6".
Really?
Yes, and
he's the only one that could cover Harold Carmichael.
That's right. And he was a part of that team when the Vikings were blocking all those kicks with Matt Blair, Tim Baylor, Joe Sensor. Bud Grant described them as leapers. You take a couple of steps and you leap up, and you're 6'6" anyway, and then you're 9 feet tall. So Tim Baylor is a great businessman here in the cities, owns a number of McDonald's. He's one of our corporate partners, and he's a dear lifelong friend. Great perspective from athletics to life after football and doing it successfully in real estate and being a restaurateur. Just a great story, a great tale. He would be fantastic.
I might have to catch him. At your tournament, your golf tournament.
Absolutely.
I mean, the other person that I would love to have on this show, and I don't know how well you know him, but Sean Lumpkin.
Yeah, I'll call Sean tomorrow. I'll call Sean today. Absolutely.
You know what's kind of funny about that? I used to give him a hard time because I bartended at Fuddruckers when he was like 15 years old, and he was the busboy at Fuddruckers, 16, at the one in St. Louis Park. I was bartending at that Fuddruckers.
Well, that was the only Fuddruckers around for years.
That's right. So I gave him a hard time, but he turned out to be such a phenomenal young man, and you don't think of that at the time, but he was quiet and he was a hard worker.
Yeah.
He did his job. And I was a bartender there, so I was kind of not the manager, but,
we'll make it happen.
Kind of funny. So
we will make it happen.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And Don Shelby, I just saw him at Chanhassen. His last performance. He's not bringing it back again, but he did Mark Twain.
Yes.
Incredible job doing Mark Twain.
Good dude.
So, yes.
Good dude.
And then this is the part where I'll give you a few pictures.
Okay.
And some of you've seen all of them, I'm sure, but I always do this in part of on my podcast. Is the first one. That was a special day for you.
Wow, yeah, and we celebrated a couple of Wednesdays ago, June 3rd, our 48th year wedding anniversary. And people say, Greg, how in the ham fat have you guys stayed married for 47 years? And it's simple. We committed to the covenant and not a contract. We feel that marriage is you take two imperfect people making perfect vows to a perfect God, and we stay married one day at a time.
That's awesome. I have a follow-up question to that.
Sure.
What has she taught you that football, broadcasting, and anything in life it could never do? All the successes could never teach you.
She said, honey, you ain't all of that.
Keeping you humble.
Absolutely.
That's a hard lesson to learn sometimes, but it's one that we all need.
God knew what I needed. After I'd gotten cut, I saw her one day and I said, oh my God, I'm going to marry that woman. And never saw her again for another 6 months and come full circle. And we've not been apart since then.
Oh, what a fantastic love story.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have kids, wonderful kids.
Yeah. She's given us two wonderful kids. Kara, who is the executive director of Rojo Collective, and G2, who given us the two youngest grandkids, Zaina and Amir. And Zaina tells me what she wants for breakfast every morning. Papa, I want you to make breakfast, and this is what I want. I want grits, I want eggs, and I want bacon, and I want oranges. I don't want watermelon. So can you do that, Papa? Yes, baby, I can do that.
Of course, they have your heart.
Absolutely. And Kara, talk about a heart of gold. Kara adopted 4 kids about 8 years ago. And at the time when we got them, they were 3, 4, 6, and 7. They're now young teenagers and just doing fantastic. The job that she and Chris have done, you talk about giving, amazing.
Adopted parents are like amazing people.
4 at the same time.
Making a difference in these lives.
Yeah. And many, many years ago when Ellen was doing volunteer work at St. Joe's home over in South Minneapolis, she calls me and said, when are you going to be home? I'll be home. I thought she had found another pet, a cat or a dog or something like that. Well, here's this little short 15-year-old standing in our room. She said, she needs to stay with us. I said, okay, for a couple of days, a weekend? No, she needs to stay with us. So we have another foster daughter who's now in her 50s, 2 young adult kids doing fantastic. She's now living in Florida with her husband, who's a pilot. And one of those offsprings went to the Air Force, has his pilot's license. He's now in Bangkok. And the other is working for Honeywell down in Atlanta. So through that woman, she has blessed a lot of people.
Both of you guys making a difference in the world. She's doing it more silently, but that's amazing stuff right there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this is like almost, 45 years later?
Yeah.
In Italy.
In Italy. That was at the Colosseum, one of the places that she wanted to travel, but we couldn't because of season and all of that stuff. And I made a commitment, Mama, we're going to do whatever we choose to do. And that was one of the trips. Another one was to South Africa and Zimbabwe, doing some ministry work with my pastor, Bishop McLaughlin. And at that South Africa, I know that God has had his hand on my life because I almost stepped on a puff adder. And I'm not sure if you know what that is. That's a python.
Oh.
And that puff adder is responsible for 95% of the deadly snake bites in South Africa. And my foot was about to come down on him. And I don't know how physics work, but I knew that God lifted me above that snake where he didn't move, did not bite. Now, gravity tells me what goes up has to come down. I was coming down on the snake, but never touched it.
Wow.
So,
amen to just miracles like that.
Absolutely. Miracles still happen, brother. They say miracles happen when you have a miracle situation, and that's exactly what it was.
The wonderful, another great story.
Absolutely.
Jeez, I get so much from you. And then this one I really love because right after that, I actually went to Canton for the first time, not as an inductee, but as a visitor.
Okay.
But it was so amazing to see that place, and everybody just thinks the Hall of Fame, but I highly recommend going into the College Black Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
and seeing that.
And this gallery is going to be quadrupled in phase 2 of the new build out in the Hall of Fame itself. So I can't wait until that happens. It'll be a place where your legacy and your story will be told forever.
So I got 2 questions for you on
Sure.
that with that follow-up. This photo was definitely a tremendous honor for you. And, and just to be involved in the Black College Football Hall of Fame and have your name, what is it like that feeling to have your name connected with the history of the game, like forever? I feel like that's something I would never get to feel.
You talk about the word humility and humble in perspective, because every man who has been inducted into the Black College Football Hall of Fame has a story. And most of our stories are very, very similar. We've traveled the same road because we were faced with biases, prejudice, racism. And this is where historically Black colleges and HBCUs came to our rescue and provided us a path to show our talents, to show our wares, whether it was a player, coach, or contributor, to all of these men who came before me in the Black College Football Hall of Fame. Little did I know my last year was with Washington, and it was after they beat us the previous year. Doug Williams won that Super Bowl, and he was the MVP. And Doug Williams, without question, deserves to be in the Black College Football Hall of Fame as a co-founder, but also deserves to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'll ask 3 things, what people knew, people in the community. They knew where they were when Dr. Martin Luther King was shot. They knew where they were when President Obama won the presidency, and they knew where they were when Doug Williams won the Super Bowl. That's part of American history. That's not only Black history, that's American history. And there's no reason that Doug Williams, Super Bowl MVP from Grambling, Louisiana, should not be in the college football, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's a travesty.
Amazingly enough, when you said that, it just brought me back to that time in my living room.
Yes. Everybody knew.
Oh, yes.
I mean, amazing.
Oh.
Amazing.
Also on top of that, you've been a broadcaster, and one of the things that I really wanted to ask you was, once James Brown, not the singer, the sports announcer, he said you have the Master of King's English. I know we talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to go a little deeper in that. And the Master of King James. Did those words feel more like a compliment or a challenge or a calling, or maybe all three?
It was all three. I went to school. I went to Bible school here in Minneapolis for my own edification. Northwestern College in Bethel, just for my own learning. My pastor at the time, Leslie Ford, over at Living Word Church in St. Paul, wanted me to be a part of his ministry staff. I said, Pastor, I don't need to be one of your ministers. I just went to school for my own edification. And almost to the point of being arrogant, he said, I'm going to license you against all recommendation. And if you've got a problem with that, talk to God. See, because we need, the body of Christ needs people like you. So here I am. That was 2000 that I was licensed as a minister, and in 2026 ordained as a pastor.
Wow, so you really went after a lot of stuff. Like, I'm still amazed. Like, this is the first I heard of Bethel, and then like I was thinking like Brown. You went to Brown too. Like, this was after or during football or after
football. After retirement. Yeah,
that's just like being a go-getter, right? Like, I just need to constantly get fed, which is amazing.
I'm a lifelong learner, and I feel that each and every day that I can learn something that I can share with someone else to make a difference in their lives. You'll never know the words that come out of your mouth, the gestures that you do, the little things, whether it's buying a person a meal, say, hey, I'll take care of this meal. I don't want them to know who it was. All of those things, I think they make a difference because it will let that person know that there's somebody in the world who cares about me. And that's all. Sometimes that's all it takes, Wymond, for somebody. Man, I'm not at the bottom of the totem pole. I'm not at the bottom of the barrel. Somebody does love me. Somebody does care about me. And that's what this world needs, man. More love.
Amen to that. It's that's exactly what it is. More love, more compassion, and more actually listening to the other side, right?
Absolutely.
It just feels like we're so divided, but I'm wondering if sometimes that dividedness, we didn't feel that in the 60s either, I feel like it just kind of...
It was, I used to say even back in many, many years ago that the 90s was like the 60s are turned upside down. And if we don't learn from our past mistakes, then we're bound to repeat them again. And we are repeating some of the things that we went through during the 60s and 70s. And I'll use this comparison. In a lot of my visits over to South Africa, to the home of Nelson Mandela, as a matter of fact, Eleanor spent time in Bishop Desmond Tutu's home with his daughters. She went on a sojourn many, many years ago, and in the home of Nelson Mandela, and going to Rikers Island and see where he spent all those years in that small cell that's half of the size of this office. When he became president of South Africa, there was a fear that President Mandela would treat those who were in power at the time, the authors of apartheid, like they treated the blacks. And he did just the opposite. He gave them an opportunity to repent of that atrocity. The race relations in South Africa are better than they are in this country. Because when you bare your soul and you say the words, we were wrong, and I'm sorry. Now, there's still a discrepancy between the haves and the haves not. But in terms of race relations, they are far beyond where we are. Because those who are in power in this country have had the opportunity, but have doubled down on no. And you see some of the same lessons are starting to repeat themselves many, many years later.
It's unfortunate
It
that we
is.
don't learn from that and then really understand and learn from the good. Like the Mandela story you just told me. I mean, that's good that we should be learning to use
Absolutely.
and reach for.
Absolutely.
Wow, powerful stuff right there, Greg. I appreciate all this. So I'm gonna go to that last picture we have of you there. Man, that was like high school, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was a
5
senior.
grade athletes.
These were the studs, man. These were the dogs on campus, man. Don Gaffney, who's standing with me to my left, was the first African American quarterback at the University of Florida.
Oh,
Dear friend, he and his wife Tracy, lifelong friends. Man, still in touch with these guys. The guy with the TSU relay shirt, Levi Ingram, one of the best athletes in school. We lost him a few years ago. David Harper, you talk about Gale Sayers in the flesh. This kid could run a ball like nobody's business. And Victor Fowler, long time man, we called him Slim, basketball player. He was a safety for us. Lost him a few years ago, man. But these were some dear friends. We had a great time. We had a great community at Raines High School back in Jacksonville.
yeah. And you were young there, and I'm sure you're looking back at you like, man, if I could have known certain things, I would have done that. If you could go back there and go, hey, Greg, you need to know this now that I've known this, what would you tell that young Greg?
I think it would be simple. Don't cut corners and do the best that you can with everything that you do.
I feel like you've done that. I feel like you've given that advice to him at that age.
Well, be the best. And I'll end with this. One of my mentors when I was with Cleveland, Gerald Irons, linebacker, great man, said, Coleman, I see you busting your butt, man, and you remind me to be the best. And he wrote this poem, and he gave it to me. And I share it every time on a stage or an opportunity. It's called Be the Best. To be the best is my quest. Now, athletes come and athletes go, but there's something very special about being a pro. So on and on towards this goal I'll strive while keeping my championship hopes alive. And let us not forget the day-to-day concentration, for it'll help make us the best in the nation. To be the best is my quest. Now, some just might be happy to make the squad, but I'll never be satisfied until I get that Super Bowl wad and so much happiness I know it'll bring the thrill of wearing a Super Bowl ring. To be the best is my quest. Now, everything needed I cannot mention, but I hope the things that I've said is not beyond your retention. So be the best.
Oh, that's beautiful. That really is. My goodness. I do have one closing question for you.
Yes.
There's just so much. When the last question I have for you is when your grandchildren and great-grandchildren tell stories about you, Greg Coleman, someday, what do you hope they say? This is going to memorialize this now.
Papa was fun.
Nice. That's really what matters. What the legacy is, right? That's the huge part. It's not all the football accolades. It's not all the broadcasting accolades.
All those Hall of Fames, all those accolades, all of those things, to have my kids and my grandkids to say Papa was good.
Yeah.
Papa was a good man.
I like that same idea where I hope my great-grandkids and grandkids say, Wymond, my granddad made a difference in this world.
Exactly.
That's the biggest thing. And
Yep.
yes, and being funny is part of it.
Yes.
So, well, thank you, Greg.
Wymond, it's been a pleasure.
Before we go, I do have a few things for you.
Okay.
First, I know this isn't the biggest trophy you've ever gotten, but we always love giving that little trophy, and it's the only trophy that Wymond gives out. So
I love it.
A Wymond trophy.
I love it. Thumbs up, baby.
And many years of success with fortune cookies from a real Chinese guy.
All right. Thank you, sir.
And then last, a check to the youth, the YMCA Youth of the North.
Oh, man.
It's the ending is an 8 in it
Why?
because of I love the number 8 just
There
like
you go.
So
Awesome. Wymond, it's been a blessing, man. And to see you, and I'm going to give you your flowers where you can smell them, to see you come full circle and now providing this platform for other business people and people in this community to share their stories, sometimes All a person needs is an opportunity to do good or to share with this community that there are good people doing that. Man, so I applaud you. My hat's off to you.
Thank
God
you.
bless you and the crew. It's good to see some of the guys here.
Yeah.
And man, just keep on keeping on. Keep punting, baby.
I appreciate that. And, again, I can't thank you enough, Greg, for being on Twin City Tales. If you want to learn more about Greg Coleman, you can go to gregcoleman8.com. He will also be at his golf event at Bunker Hills.
Bunker Hills, yes.
That's right, with a lot of wonderful people. Get in there and check it out. You don't have to play. You can just go there and visit and have dinner.
Write a check.
Write a check. That
Yes.
helps. I think volunteers are welcome too.
Absolutely.
Because they use all the help they can get. And it's a wonderful event. And they treat their volunteers really well too.
Yeah, just hit the website.
Yeah, get to the website. That's going to be at ymcanorth.org/Coleman Golf. If you can't write that fast, we will put it on our Spotify and YouTube pages, or you can visit us at Twin City Facebook page where we'll post it on there. As we roll out of here, I want to thank Chris Hockey again for the use of his song Thanks, with no pun intended. This podcast is powered by Twin City Heating, Air, and Electric. And until the next one, remember, you can't go wrong with Wymond Wong on Twin City Tales Podcast.
This song goes out to my family.